Hey everyone, this is Throwin Down with Jess and Lily. I'm Lily Caffrey Levine.
I'm Jess King.
And welcome to a 105 degree, 80% humidity episode of Throwin Down, where we're going to get into just the past week in sports. A lot going on as always, because
there's
just a lot going on. It is extremely hot, and I have the AC going, if that's like weird background noise. Yeah, it's really, really, really hot. This is like the third shirt I've worn today. So,
but here we are.
Let's get into it.
And we have a lot of things to talk about, and some news went down earlier today that we want to address first.
Oh, the best news.
Lily is very thrilled by it, as am I. It's a good clapback story, and I'll let Lily take it from there.
I like the way you classify stories. You're like, this is a clapback story. This is a clout story. And I'm like, don't live in the 21st century. I'm like, what is she saying?
I'm like trying to identify with the Gen Z kids.
I'm just like, what is she saying?
We were born in 98 and we're like the first.
We're the both. But so
Gen Z,
I think
and I feel lost.
We're technically, I think, Gen Z, but I've also heard people say that like millennials are like after, or Gen Z's after 2000, which I don't care what I am, but would it not make sense to make the millennium cutoff at the millennium? Like you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But I've always me and my parents have discussed this at length, as I have with like everybody. And my thing has always been like, I feel like I identify with millennials in our like childhood similarities and like interests and stuff like that more than I do with Gen Z.
But I definitely know my way around an iPhone better than a lot of 30-year-olds.
Okay, so. And I'll give you that too. So we're just like really in the middle here.
We are.
So after that tangent, it was announced today that there will be a new sports media website, Defector, coming in September. And they're putting out a podcast in mid-August. And the kind of shtick of this is that it's done by the former writers and editors of Deadspin, which about a year ago, less than a year ago,
I think.
After a lot of stick to sports comments and things like that, the entire staff quit.
As a unit,
which was a very big deal at the time, obviously, and it's still a big deal as far as like the sports media industry goes. But now they're back, and they're
telling everyone.
Yeah,
what's good.
So they tweeted today. This is Defector, a new sports blog and media company from the writers you missed. We made this place together. We own it together. We run it together. Defector.com. I am excited as someone that was heartbroken about Deadspin. And I'm also excited as someone that likes to see like cool things happen. And I think this is going to be a really cool thing. And I think all we know is, I guess they like had a Zoom call. And they announced that they're starting up. Other than that, there's not a whole lot else that's public right now. But I feel a lot of excitement for this because of the way that Deadspin was, the way that it was a very creative place, the way that it was very outside of the box place. And I'm also excited because of their use of the word together. We made it together. We run it together. Something that I've always adored in a website like The Ringer is that I read things from them, and I always just feel like everyone that works there is just like really good friends, and they like hanging out together, and like they collaborate really well with each other. And I think that takes their already very strong talent to like a whole nother level. And so I think that
it just makes the whole thing a lot more entertaining too.
Yeah, and so I think Defector,
you listen to it and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like,
yeah, and I think it'll probably be a similar kind of thing of it's like, oh, these are friends that like each other and hang out together and like work well together, which is always just like a really wholesome thing. Mm-hmm. And then I also raised the question of people always ask like, is The Athletic the future of sports journalism, like the subscription service kind of side of it? And I guess we don't know, like it's still really young, but now this raises the question of it's like, what is the profit kind of aspect going to be to a website like this? Are they making money? Are they doing it for fun? Like, I'm sure that there's obviously expenses in it, so it's coming from somewhere, whether it be ad revenue or whatever. But is this the new future of sports journalism? Like, friends getting together and saying, let's go for it? I would not be opposed to that at all. I'm just curious as to, like,
we would be doing really well.
I know.
That's exactly what we're trying to get at right now.
I just wonder, not in a bad way, just out of, like, curiosity, is like what's like the business model.
Well, so if you go on their website right now, if you go on their website right now, and there's not a ton of content, just a lot of like promos for what they have coming in store. Mm-hmm. This was just announced today. I love this little tagline that they have: all of our bullshit, none of theirs.
Okay, see, that's why I really like this independent thing. Like, I really, really like it. And I'm just so excited
for it. But they do have a lot of cool subscription packages, offers. Okay. $69 a year, $8 a month.
So does that mean it will be a subscription service thing?
I think so. That's what I think they're gonna go for. Okay. It looks like here, which I mean is fine because I'm all for paying for content. I'm doing this right now for free because I like it, but I'm sure that if I was an actual full-grown adult that doesn't live with her mom, then I'd have to be thinking more seriously about
Jess, it's going to be so good. I'm looking at the website now. It's going to be so good.
It's really just, if you guys haven't looked it up, it's just the name, defector.com.
Okay. I'm a fan of this. I'm really excited to see what they come up with.
Yeah, so that's something for all of our fans listening right now to keep an eye out for, because it's kind of the same thing that we're trying to do here. Like, we are just spewing what we want. We don't really have anyone telling us what we can and cannot say, and we don't want to stick to sports. That's the whole point of what we're doing here. It's never just sports. So we support them. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking more about them.
When they hit the ground running, as we know they will, we'll dive deeper into that and what they're talking about. In other news, do you want to talk about the reigning fire that is the MLB and
let's talk about the reigning fire that is everything.
But they are definitely
let's talk.
The leaders in chaos, and it's not even organized chaos, because I think
I feel like I would classify everything I do as organized chaos, and that is not this.
I feel like the MLB sneakily restarted their season, and like, where was I when like all of this was going down? Like, I'm trying to think in the past couple of weeks when everyone was announcing. Like, I think I was so personally caught up in the NBA's restart and the bubble stuff that I
because it was smart
forgot about the MLB. And I just honestly thought, like, there's no way that baseball is actually going to play without a bubble. And guess what? They did it. And then after the first game, I was like, well.
So here are my initial reactions to everything going on. 1, was a bubble considered ever as one of the options? I don't know. 2, did anybody, like, in anything of the planning be like, well, what if it goes wrong? Like, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of contingency plan in place. And 3, like, let's talk contact tracing, because I don't think a lot of people did, because then there's this, like, well, he was tested 24 hours ago. He was tested. He'll get his results in 24 hours. But then it's just like playing a baseball game. And I'm just like, okay, so you're next to the catcher and the umpire when you're on plate. Then you make it to first, and you're next to the first base coach and the first baseman. Then you go to second. That's another person. Then you're at third. That's 2 more people. And now you're home, and you're back with those people. And then you're back in the dugout. And I know there are players wearing masks, which I'm in support of. Like, I'm totally for it, because this isn't a bubble system. But, like, if you have 1 second baseman wearing a mask and nobody else, like, I'm just like, What?
Just
How did you
need to
not
bring
see this
up-
coming?
For all the people who are listening to this right now and think like we might be being dramatic, let me just read you
I will
something that
not
I send to
hear
my
any arguments
non-sports
that I'm
friends
dramatic.
so they can understand like how much my brain hurts with
This
this
makes me want to
situation.
take a nap.
The tweet, so it's like, so the Orioles are leaving Miami, a hotspot, and won't be quarantined. The Atlanta Braves, where the Marlins may or may not have contracted COVID-19, are playing in Tampa tonight. The Yankees are holed up in a Philly hotel. The Marlins are also still in Philly. Yikes. And I'm just mad because I'm from New York. Like, I spent a lot of time in quarantine, and now I'm like able to go to the beach. Like, I wear my mask when I go out to eat and stuff. But it's just like, why do I have to do this? But you don't have to. Like, Yankees, you could stay wherever you are because I kind of don't want you back in New York.
Stay in Philly.
Like,
we're fine.
All up in
just stay in
our
Philly.
Space.
We
our
get
poor
it.
Air
Baseball.
quality. Like,
we get it.
I
baseball,
don't need it.
Stay in Philly. I feel like you guys will have a better time there. No,
it's just like take baseball and put it over there. Like, I don't want it.
Okay, so as far as the like, well, what were they supposed to do thing? I understand that with a bubble, it might be like baseball teams are much larger and there's a lot of people involved, whatever. So like maybe it's difficult to do a bubble.
It's almost as if they don't have a lot of money though.
And
like what?
So I understand that there would maybe be a little bit more or a lot more going into a bubble than it did for the NBA. However, and I think it would be a little bit of a longer time because they're playing their whole shortened season. However, if that wasn't going to work, then maybe it sounds like we just shouldn't play baseball. Sorry.
I just really didn't need baseball that bad, like personally.
Like I want it, yeah, but like I don't want people to die because of it. That was my favorite tweet this week. Someone tweeted, and I lost it. Technical difficulties. Hold on. Yeah, like I'm obviously happy to have baseball back. I'm more so happy that there are probably like close to 1 million people that now have jobs because baseball is back. However, I'm going to stay with my argument. No one should die or get sick because of this. It's not worth it. And I don't know why that's not like super. Oh, this was the tweet. Baseball's back, baby. Hope nobody dies. Same actually.
And a silence falls over the crowd because everybody's just like, well, we're screwed.
Well, we'll move on from the ranting about it. And actually, like, my true thoughts on this are that the Miami Marlins have suspended their season. I think until further notice because of the number of cases they've had on the team. They've obviously come into contact with a few teams at this point. And whatever their traveling situations are and whatever. And now I think of this very differently, knowing how quickly everything shut down when Rudy Gobert tested positive. It was like that happened and they said mid-game, shut it down. And so I'm a little bit concerned that I'm like, yeah, I think this is the line. Like, I think this is too many players testing positive to the point where we can't do this anymore. And I'm curious to see how long it takes until we get to that point, because the way that it's been handled so far, I do not see them playing 20 games. Like, people are like, maybe they'll play 50 and it'll get cut off before the last 10. I'm like, oh, we might not hit 20. Like, we might not hit 10.
And it's just like crazy because they have no intention of shutting down the season. And here's my thing. Like, COVID aside, which is feel like impossible to say that I can't say like COVID aside. It's just like, say that you don't want to shut down the season and half of the Marlins have coronavirus and then that goes to the next team and the next team and the next team. It's like the level of competition will go down so quickly. And I've been saying this about the NFL all like quarantine. Oh, yeah. It's like if half of your team gets sick, they're out for 2 weeks.
Minimum.
They have to 2 football games.
They're out for 2 weeks, like after recovery. So
yeah,
however long their recovery
like if nothing awful, God forbid, happens to any of the players or anything. And it's just like for football, okay, that's 2 games then at least that your top player or whoever gets injured. And then it's like, for baseball, how many games would you say that it's going to be? Like 5, 6, 7, a bunch, more than 7. Like, if you're missing 2 weeks of baseball, that's a lot of games. So it's like, what is that worth? Like, I feel like diehard baseball fans are gonna turn on the games and just be like, well, this is just terrible now, and they're just gonna get angry. Because I feel like baseball fans are so quick to get
Everyone's
angry.
been asking for like 5 years or like more than that. How do we save
And like
baseball?
even when we did a fantasy baseball draft, I had no rhyme or reason.
Oh no, because I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. No,
because everybody's now on the like.
We've been asking for years now.
Coronavirus.
We've been asking for years now. How do we save baseball? And I don't know what the answer is.
This is definitely the way to kill
wait,
baseball.
1 second. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that the answer is not endangering your players and then in that having like zero level of competition, because A, players will get sick, they won't be able to play. B, people are going to start being like, heck no, I'm out. Like, I'm not doing this if there's like obviously no concern for safety. So I don't know. What do we give it? I give it 5 days. I say, what day is it? Tuesday?
It's been 3 days already. No? What? When did it start on Saturday?
Guess, my prediction. It's not even a prediction, but my like shot in the dark hunch. By the time we are recording this podcast next week, the baseball season will be canceled. The baseball season will be canceled. I just don't see I just don't see a way that they are able to resolve this. You also just now logistically have one team that's just not participating in the season. So how does that work?
I don't get it. Like, my head hurts talking about it because I feel like we've also been talking because
I feel like I'm yelling at a brick wall.
We've been talking about this a lot, and it's just like
it's like talking to a brick wall. It's like, I don't know. It's frustrating. It's definitely frustrating
really,
because
get anywhere. I mean,
because we want
if only
sports
we
to come
were the
back.
ones who made powerful decisions.
We want sports to come back, but sports will never actually come back until this thing is solved or this thing's like remedied. So I guess
but there's better news. There's better news in the world today. And that comes from the WNBA. And ESPN is bringing 13 more WNBA games to air, which is going to be a total of 37 regular season games. And I think they have some deal going on about like with their postseason viewing, so that can be watched on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2. So we have some more love and support for women's sports, which we love. I mean, I personally believe that with more TV and airtime, more people will want to watch women's basketball games. And I mean, the only thing we can do right now is air games because we can't have anyone go to them.
I'll play the role of she's never happy about anything. I'll take one for the team.
Okay.
Great.
You're a bad cop today.
Super glad that they're adding 13 more games. But, like, why weren't you airing those games in the first place? Like, and I'm all for, like, yes, let's do it. And
but that's such, like, an obvious answer why. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so personally over asking that question. Because I know,
but but when we're not playing any other sports, what's your excuse now? Oh, they don't get good ratings, which isn't true. Is playing 18 hours of SportsCenter reruns getting you good ratings? I don't know if it is. They're
not getting my views. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not watching SportsCenter rerun. Like, it's like watching reruns of the news. You're like, oh, this happened. Remember when life sucked less?
But I feel like the public, even though now that they're showing those games, they're going with what you said. It's like, okay, we don't have a lot of other sports on, so we're going to watch these games.
Build it and they will come.
The opening day had the most views in 8 years for a WNBA opening day on ABC. So they had 540,000 viewers. That went up 20% from last year, and again, like the most since 2012.
So my Saturday was actually really nice. Because after a really long week,
was on.
Yeah, I woke up after a really long week at noon, which was awesome. And without getting ready, without doing anything, I just walked downstairs, put ESPN on, made some coffee, sat, and watched a WNBA game. And you know what? It was 1,000 degrees, so it was really nice to be in the AC. Then the game was over, and I
Watching
sat out in the sun
sports.
for a while. And it was lovely. And basketball games are never on at noon, like anyways. So I was like super psyched that I was like, I can just wake up. That's when I love when the NFL goes to London. I like wake up and there's a football game on and I'm like, ooh, it's 9 a.m. and I can just roll out of bed.
You're like, wow, this is strange.
I know,
it makes me think sometimes that I slept in late when I turn on the TV and there's football on.
No, those are the days where I wake up watching football and I fall asleep watching football because then you're watching the West Coast games like in bed and it's like 11:30 and you're like, all right, Sunday. So, I mean, it's really great and I don't want to just be a complete cynic about it. Like, I'm really psyched that they're seeing that they are getting good ratings and that they're choosing to roll with that and play more games. So I hope that they continue to get those ratings up. I think it's going to be a really good season. I think the WNBA is interesting to watch, taking every other outside factor out of it. And it makes me really feel morally good to be supporting athletes that are supporting important causes, with putting names on the back of their jerseys.
Lots of the WNBA players are taking a stance
on the back, and I just feel it. This is weird. It always kind of makes me sad, like in a weird way, when I see one team, and this happened at the Red Sox game. I see one team all kneeling for the anthem, and then you go to the other team, and a few players are kneeling, and I'm like, oh, I mean, like, good. I don't know how to say this without like offending someone, but I don't know. I'm just kind of like stand in solidarity with each other. You know what I mean? Like it makes me feel the parts of sports that like give you butterflies and make you feel good. Seeing a team all come together for something like that is one of those. And it makes me a little sad when I'm just like, oh, you're not all in it together like that. And that's, I think, a really fun thing about the WNBA is that they really are. Like, they're very on the same page about stuff like that. They're very...
wonder if it's, like, awkward for athletes when they go back to
that's
the
the thing that I think makes me sad about it.
Like,
is that,
so I personally think it's everyone's decision.
I put myself in a situation, and like, I would, if I were kneeling and like most of my teammates weren't, I would feel like weirdly like... I'd be like, oh, I kind of...
And that's not to say I think that everyone should just, like, follow the leader, I guess. Like, everyone has a right to choose to protest and also, like, not protest. But also, like you said, like, it's a team thing. And I feel like at some point down the line, it has to kind of backfire. Like, maybe it makes
they don't all do it
a little awkward. Yeah.
I just can't help but feel that if you're one of the players that's kneeling and the entirety of the other team is doing it together and your teammates aren't, I'd have to imagine. It's like, again, just
look at them have their back, like, but y'all don't have my back.
And it's just putting myself in the situation of I was like, I would feel a little like about it. But that's not up to me to decide because I don't play professional sports, so I can't say what they're thinking. But I do think that the WNBA, to make it a very clear point, has been on like the front lines of fighting for social justice long before a lot of leagues were. So let's acknowledge that, because they've really been fighting the good fight for a long time now, and very few people talk about that.
And I mean, I feel like I also love the little celebrity status come up that's been going down. From a lot of
are just
NBA
all like
WNBA players.
Good. They seem to me from interviews and stuff like that, just all like really, not just good people, but like people that you would enjoy hanging out with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if there's, okay, so let me raise this question to you, and you can't say Dennis Rodman because that's the obvious first answer. Who's an athlete you think you would have a really fun time just like hanging out with for the day? Like if you guys were like friendly. And who's one you think you wouldn't have fun with?
I don't think I would have fun with that's the one I want to go with first, and I feel like it's like a really obvious one. I don't think I would have any fun with Jacob deGrom because he's really like way too like serious, like he's about his business. So like at least that's like what I get from him. I mean, when I interned for the Mets, he waved to me once. No big deal. But I mean, still, that's like completely different than like going out and having a beer with the guy who I think I would get along with really well and like have fun with. I would have to go with JJ Redick, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's a good answer because I think JJ Redick is very
I've been using
personable.
a lot of, like, see, that question, I thought about that in the beginning of the bubble when everyone started arriving.
Is it because he did the shotgun thing?
Then you get and you get a glimpse into people's personal lives. And it's like, oh, you're fun and interesting. Like, not a lot of people would, like, do that. Like, I also think that maybe I wouldn't really get along with Joel Embiid because...
Really? I feel like I really would. I feel like
very like does things a certain like his way all the time.
So,
and I'm more of a go with the flow type of person.
Yeah, I kind of have like a middle ground answer. Like I have both answers and I have like a middle ground one. And I'll start with my middle ground one is that like someone I think I would definitely get along with. And we could be like friendly and hang out, but we'd never be like, I just don't think we like our Venn diagrams ever like cross. Is Tom Brady. I just think like he's a very like I think he's a super like he seems like a nice dude and is like very polite and like pleasant to be around. But I just like thinking about it, I'm like
he seems like a nerd.
You do? I think he just seems very serious about what he does, and I am in no way. So like I just don't see me and Tom Brady ever being able to like, oh, you want to grab lunch? Like, should we all get lunch? And then like, and I just like am also like, not like stress me out. Everybody can do what they want, but I get like overwhelmed when people are like, oh, you shouldn't be eating that, or you shouldn't be like eating that, or that's really bad for you. And
I feel like his jokes wouldn't land with you. Like,
yeah,
you have your own sense of humor, and I feel like he obviously, because he is like a dad, but
I think he's a lot more low key
dad jokes, but like it wouldn't land.
I think for being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, he seems like a very like kind of chill, low key person.
That's just kind of like I do feel like he tries hard on social media. I have to say
that's fair. Someone I think I would have a really good time with. I want to say Sue Bird so badly, but I just also think she's really like intense and serious, and I think I just like would be intimidated by her. To the point where, like, I couldn't be myself.
I wouldn't even know what to say.
Like, I don't think I could, like, hang out and be myself with her.
You're so awesome.
Yeah, like, I don't think I could, like, not think. Like, I don't think I could, like, chill.
There's some athletes
very,
that
like,
when you ask that
tense.
question, like, wouldn't even ever come into my brain.
Because
like,
she's
personally,
just, like,
I think I wouldn't get along with LeBron James. But that's not even a fair question because if I ever was in a room with LeBron James, I would just start sweating.
But that's the thing is, like, I would love to, like, I think Sue Bird and I would get along great. I just think, like, her level of intensity and, like, how freaking cool she is to me would just be, like, way too overwhelming for me. Someone I actually think I could get along with, and I think you could too, is Sabrina Ionescu. Like, I think, and I'll give it the same age pass. Like, we're similar ages, so I feel like we just baseline have a lot in common. I definitely think she's,
like, way more serious than we are. I mean,
but I think she's, like, funny.
She isn't.
Like, I think she's chill. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know.
I think she's going to grow into the spotlight. I think she's going to grow into the spotlight, too, because she is new. And one thing I did, I'm glad you kind of brought her up. New York Liberties this year, she played. And she kind of had a rough start.
That's the game I watched on Friday.
It was, like, humbling for her probably. And, like, although, like, I'm a big fan of hers, I think it's, like, always super great to see a superstar from college come into the league and, like,
and not be
get a super humbling experience. So she went 4 for 17 overall and 0 from 8 from behind the arc. So it's just, like, only 12 points, which obviously I wouldn't even be able to score any points in the WNBA game.
So it's fine.
So who am I to, like, run my mouth like this? Sabrina, if you're listening, I swear I'm a big fan of yours. Like, when I went to go buy your jersey, it was sold out. And I went on it, like,
so this brings up, like, my favorite conversation topic of all time that I don't think anybody else enjoys except for, like, you and I, is we have a friend, Dave. And Dave would, like, sometimes out of the blue just be like, if we're, like, sitting in a room with, like, 5 people total, he's like, how many points do you think we'd score against the Knicks? And it turns into this, like, hour-long debate. Or no, it's how many games could we win in a season if we were a basketball team. And my answer
as a collective unit.
Yeah. So
co-ed,
like us
co-ed men and women.
So like as us and 3 friends.
Yes.
How many NBA games could we win in a whole season? My answer off the bat is always 0. I literally, in this scenario, and I know it's more of a joke, I always stick with the argument that I'm like, I would not score a single point. I could make free throws. I think that is my only contribution.
I played basketball in high school, haven't really picked up basketball since then.
So speaking of nothing, because that's not a good segue, we're going to talk about hockey. Yeah, we didn't have one. I didn't have a segue, so I just went with it. We're going to talk about hockey, which was...
Other good news.
What?
Besides the wobble, which is what we are referring to the WNBA bubble, is the wobble, just in case you guys wanted to educate yourselves. But hockey has their own bubble, too, and it's going well,
you know what my favorite thing about the bubble is? You probably saw this on Twitter. That they put, like, personal photos, like photos of their families and their kids and stuff, like, on their nightstands in their hotel rooms. I don't think the NBA did that.
I hope that some of the guys did that. I think that everyone
like the
was
NHL
more obsessed
did it.
with.
Like the NHL.
But I'm saying like even like personally, like per NBA player that are in the bubble, NBA players that are in the bubble right now, I hope that a couple of them had put up some pictures of their family. I feel like a lot of people that like follow NBA players and the NBA itself are like super into the swag and stuff like that the NBA players have, like who is bringing like their like PlayStation or Xbox or whatever, and like the outfits that they were wearing and stuff like that, and like their like fits and stuff.
Speaking of bubbles,
hockey is like so like heartwarming. Like, oh, my family.
Hockey is, I've always felt to be very wholesome. I don't know why. Maybe it's like the Canada thing. No, I grew up.
That's exactly what it is.
I used to be a huge hockey fan when I was in high school. There's no reason I'm not a fan anymore. I just kind of didn't. It was harder to watch it when I was in college. And so I don't keep up with it as well anymore. I would like to.
Actually, Lily, I have a super pressing question for you.
Yes.
It is about bubbles, though.
Okay. Go on.
Something I have thought about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
In my little beach town in Long Beach, New York, shout out LBNY, not Cali. A lot of people have bubble machines.
Okay.
Restaurants and businesses and stuff. There's a bakery around the block that has one. One of my friends, they have a bubble machine. How far has the farthest bubble traveled?
Did you look up the answer? Like, do you know? And you want
No,
to guess?
I have no idea.
I can't imagine it's far. I mean, I've seen bubbles on my own go decently far, to the point where maybe I stop paying attention to it before it pops. But I can't imagine they really go further than that. I'm going like maybe a mile. Like, I'll say mile. I feel like that's a safe answer.
Okay, so I Googled
Yeah.
Exactly what I asked you. How far has the farthest bubble traveled? So I have, what is the longest time a bubble has lasted?
Mm-hmm.
A physicist from the UK kept a bubble of 32 centimeters. I don't know why I was going to act like I could shape that out. For 108 days.
Oh.
But that doesn't mean how far it's traveled.
Because
it could travel into a bird, and the birds could like.
Well, that's my thing, is that I think there's a lot of outside factors. Like if you're in a lab and you have
when I see a bubble, I'm always popping that bubble.
I think
so
like if you're doing this as a controlled experiment and you can you have like you're in a protected area, then it probably lasts longer than if you're just like out in the elements.
Because then I could smack someone's hand away if they try to pop my bubble.
Why don't you go out and test it?
Okay, so next week I'll let you know.
Okay, cool, great.
That's not gonna happen.
Back to the NHL
the actual bubbles that we should be talking about. What they're doing is something different than the NBA. So the NBA, they're all holed up in Orlando at, I don't know if that's Disney World or Disneyland. I don't know the difference.
I think Orlando is Disney World.
Okay, like ooh.
Disneyland is California, I think.
Okay.
I never went to Disney, so I don't know.
Me either. So the bubble situation here, the Eastern Conference is in Toronto and the Western Conference is in Alberta, which is also in Canada. So
The NBA bubble is in Orlando.
But the NHL
is in Toronto and Alberta. Okay.
And they're separated by conferences.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. My brain's a little all over the place today. But
me too.
They're in having 3 games a day in each hub city, which is like I haven't mentioned this, but you said you were a hockey fan. I don't pay attention to hockey as much as I should, but I think this is like a huge deal for hockey fans because they're going to end up with the time difference and things like that. The way it works out on a broadcast would be essentially you start at noon and you'll have games like all day. So you could really have like 15 hours of hockey because each hub city, the 2 of them, are going to have 3 games a day. So that's like 6 games a day. I think Friday or Saturday is when the games count towards the season. I think right now they're doing scrimmages and sorts of things like that, but that started today.
And I'm fully prepared in the coming weeks to like really get into like some hockey discussion and analysis because I think it's going to be a genuinely like fun season. I think their playoff format is going to be very interesting. And I just think it's gonna, like you said, the way that the airtime is gonna be, it's gonna be kind of on all the time, which is great if you're a hockey fan. So I'm excited. I think this is where I get back into hockey. Like this is where it happens.
Yeah, and I think they have a good chance of lasting the same way the NBA does. They're both
they're also
they're not like the MLB. So they're kind of doing well. I mean, they announced on Monday that they had 0 positive tests among players.
Gosh. Speaking of Canada, can we talk about how the Toronto Blue Jays like yeeted them out of Canada? And they said, they were like, nope.
I'll be in Buffalo.
They said, sorry.
Probably never going to come back.
The Buffalo Wild Wings. Now you're going to get it.
B-dubs.
Yeah, I thought that was very amusing that they were like, yeah, sorry, no. And they were right because now an entire team has suspended their season until further notice.
Snaps for them.
Deep breaths. I think
for the NHL.
Yes, go.
I do want to get into. They are actually one league that's restarted that hasn't really taken a stance on a lot of the social injustice issues that are going on. As we know, the NBA and the NBA players are kind of doing their own thing. Baseball has been kneeling. The Red Sox actually painted their mural Black Lives Matter. The NHL has made no kind of announcements. They sent out some pictures of the rinks that they have in each of the hub cities, and it's kind of just standard business for them. Lily, do you think what implications do you think this could have across the board for hockey fans, sports culture in general?
So there's a lot of discussion, I guess, and things that come up with the topics of like racial justice and social justice in hockey that I don't think get talked about as much as they do in other sports. I think people don't watch hockey as much as far as like nationwide ratings go. However, in when was it? It was June of this year. There was an ESPN article, and there are far fewer Black hockey players of color in the NHL than there are basketball players of color and Black basketball players, football players, baseball players, etc. And so I think that that's why they've never really been at the forefront of things like this. But I think time's up. It's time to step up. It's time to step up for your Black players, your players of color. And I don't know all the details of kind of what's been going on, but I know that there have been stories where players have shared their experiences of what it's been like, and essentially coming to the conclusion that it's time to say something. It's time to speak up. It's time to take action. And again, action, not words, goes across the board. So,
Okay.
I don't know if that means they're going to do anything, but I think as far as action, not words go, paint whatever you want on the ice, put whatever sticker you want on helmets, but back it up. Like commit to having these conversations, to putting, to having people of color and Black people in your higher up positions that are in the decision-making positions. Stuff like that. And again, I don't have all the answers. I don't really have any of the answers, but I think, again, it's as simple as action, not words. And I think that goes across the board too. Like, paint Black Lives Matter on the court all you want, but people want actual change too.
So the NHL is going to allow their players to wear the custom helmets and uniforms to celebrate things like hashtag I skate for, hashtag we skate for, paired with whatever they deem fit and what each player personally believes in. And other teams are also like in talks to discuss what they're going to do for their platforms. Like Mike Matheson of the Panthers, the Florida Panthers, he is the NHLPA rep for their team, and he was kind of in this interview in the Miami Herald talking about what their organization and team wants to do to use their platform well. And I lost this quote that I was going to read. He said, I think we're still in discussions about that, using how they can use their platform better, being that it's such a sensitive thing right now, and we want to make sure that the voice we use is the right one and that it's broadcast the right way, so it's received the right way too. So I did see a couple tweets kind of like saying like, oh, what's going on in the NHL? What are they thinking over there in their predominantly white league about things that are going on right now in the world? And so, I think things will be coming, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally the only option now is in a direction forward and in a direction of change and action. I just don't know, and I know I spoke about that very slowly and very like I didn't know what I was talking about, but I just purely like don't have all the information on it and don't want to. Yeah, I speak on something that I don't totally know what's going on, but I just do think like from a broad stroke sense is that like that ESPN article boils it down just as it needs to be, is that it's action, not words, and commit to the things you're saying, commit to the statements you're making. I know teams were very committed to making statements after the murder of George Floyd and stuff like that, but you got to back it up too. And I guess we'll see this, obviously, with everything going on. This is a big reckoning for people and acknowledging what they have to do, what their next steps are.
Definitely agreed. I think when things pick up, it'll go over a lot easier. And as we all know, sports is a business. So that's why it's super interesting to watch how all this unfolds, the way people look at the demographics of their audience and who watches that, and the owners and who makes up the decision-making seats in each league. So it's all interesting, and it's all starting now. We're really kind of underway here. The NBA is back. The MLB is still in flames.
The MLB is existing, I think is the word I'm going to use.
Is still alive but barely breathing. The NHL is back. I think they're going to do really well too because they're bubbled up. And I just think moving forward, the NFL should do everything in its power to try to bubble up, because I think it's the only way to do it. It's just, honestly, I think fans are just getting outraged, and I'm sick of sports right now.
You're sick of them? I don't know if, like, of watching them?
Yeah, no, obviously I miss them, but it's just annoying. I don't understand why people think it's okay for professional baseball players to travel all around the country getting everyone freaking sick. Like, if I can't do that, how come they have to do that? I just think it's ridiculous. And I mean, whatever. I'm surprised that more people aren't outraged by that. Like, as a New Yorker, and other people that live in the tri-state area and up in the north, like, we were quarantined for so long. Like, things were so dark at one point, and I mean, we're still not done with it. So I don't understand why we're acting like we're done with it. I mean, it's nice seeing players wear masks, and obviously it'd be hard to make it mandatory for them to wear masks, but it's really nice seeing some baseball players take initiative, wearing gloves and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know. I think there's a point where we have to say stop because, as we know, sports is a sign of a functioning society. And we are not functioning right now. We are not.
Yeah. It's like it's like a really sad note to end on, but a very fair note to end on.
Let me ask you, what's your thing of the week, Lily?
I was going through my bookmarks to see if I like had any good tweets that I liked this week. I definitely did, and now I obviously can't find any of them. But
I could give mine first.
If you go first, I'll give you mine.
All right. I'll give mine. It's a tweet, obviously, because I think we started calling it Thing of the Week, but it's just turned into Tweets of the Week because
that's the only thing we do now. Because it's the only thing we do.
This is a great place to mention. Please follow us on social media if you guys haven't already listening to this, making it this far. We are at Throwin_Down on both Twitter and Instagram, and this podcast can be found on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube to see our lovely faces.
Heck yeah, check it out.
So my tweet of the week is really funny. So it's kind of the basic Twitter setup, and it's like, Adam Silver, we have 0 coronavirus cases in the bubble. Gary Bettman, we have 0 coronavirus cases in the bubble. Rob Manfred, what if we killed the Marlins?
That's so not. I should so not be laughing about that, but that's a really good tweet.
Because that's what's happening. I'm gonna start saying false things, but that's basically like, take away all the BS of what he said and like, we don't plan on shutting down baseball. He's basically like, we have protocols to keep you guys safe, but everything around me is going to flames, and I have nothing left to say. So the robot that is Rob Manfred literally was just like repeating the same thing that his PR guys told him all the time, and he's just like, I have nothing left to say. We will play baseball. I want to insert the clip here
from last week of me being like, I don't think it's impressive that the NBA had 0 cases. Like, that was supposed to be, and now, like, if the entire Miami Marlins had,
and now everyone's
corona, and I'm like, okay, yeah, 0 cases, let's go. My favorite tweet of the week is Jeff McNeil screaming "fuck" after every single pitch is the most relatable thing a Met has ever done. And I also want somebody to spin that like, Jeff McNeil screaming "fuck" after every pitch is like how I feel every time I get out of bed. Like during quarantine coronavirus. So on that,
that's how I feel.
On that note, I think that's all we have for this week. Like Jess said, follow us on social media at Throwin_Down on Twitter and Instagram, and like and subscribe and listen to this podcast on YouTube, Apple Music or Apple Podcasts or whatever, and Spotify. And remember,
it's never just sports.
We will see you next time. Thanks for listening, guys.